You really do not want to mow grass this afternoon. You don't want to run around. You're too wide awake to take a nap, so you may as well do something productive. And you're wondering to yourself, what can I possibly do to make my Saturday fun and educational? Well, you can get on the electronic front porch right now and join me. Welcome to a very special edition of Chattin On The Porch. My name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative. We are on YouTube, we are on Rumble, we are on Twitter, and as always, please send out your tweets, your getters, your gabs, your truth socials, your Facebook posts, wherever the heck you are on social media, and tell everybody to get their butts in here because this is going to be a load of fun. I've spent the past 15-20 minutes chatting with my guests backstage, and the more we talk to each other, the more we realize, this is going to be a load of fun. Again, my name is Brian Trippett. I am the Front Porch Conservative, sometimes known as the Beau and the Chapeau. We are on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter. We are here for a very special Saturday afternoon edition of Chattin' on the Porch. This is going to be a load of fun. So, we'll start dropping the volume on the music. I'll tell you about my guest, and we're going to get right into it because, Lord, have we got a load of stuff to talk about. So, as with all things in social media, you find people by, some would call it random chance. Others would call it divine providence. I tend to lean toward the latter as opposed to the former. And the more you start talking to somebody, the more you realize, man, where the heck have you been? Because we should have got together a heck of a long time ago. Such is my guest. Darius D. Simpson is a social media commentator based out of the great state of Louisiana, and I'm going to ask him a question here in a second because if he is where I think he's at and he's got the congressman I think he does, I might be giving him a chewing here in a minute, but we'll get to that in a second. But Darius is a social media commentator. He is the host of two different places on social media. One of them you'll find is Real Talk, his YouTube channel. And the other is his Twitter handle, which is KingDarius12. Folks, I want you to help me welcome probably one of the sharpest cats I think I've come across in a while. And believe me, every time I come across somebody, it is an absolute joy. Please give a warm electronic front porch welcome to the great Darius Simpson. Darius, welcome to my electronic front porch.
Well, hello, Brian. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Oh, dude, absolutely my pleasure. Like I said, the more we kept talking backstage, the more I'm like, I should have met this cat a long time ago and had him on the channel sooner because it's like, daggone. It's like, oh my goodness. So I tell you what, for probably a lot of people who may not know who you are, let's start with the basics. Where'd you grow up? Where'd you go to school? And the last part of that is, how did you get into social media, or what prompted you to say, you know what, I'm going to take the plunge. I'm going to get out there. I'm going to tell people what I think.
Well, again, thank you for having me. Very interesting questions. I'm from Shreveport, Louisiana.
Oh, no, hold it. Who's your congressman?
In Shreveport?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Because if it's who I think it is, you and I got a long talk ahead of us.
Oh, man.
I think you might have the speaker.
Oh, yes. I mean, yeah. Because I'm in Amarillo, Texas now, though. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Then you're off the hook. You're
I appreciate it. I appreciate it because the speaker is yeah. That's gonna be a conversation. But
anyway, go ahead. I'm just messing with you.
Nah, that's all right. Me and the speaker do have this in common. Besides Shreveport, Louisiana, is we both believers in Jesus Christ. I would go there. Okay. But now we moved here, and my family moved here. It's a divine call to move here to Amarillo, Texas, to preach the gospel. Okay. A number of years later, started a church here in town, Amarillo. So we've been in ministry for over 25, 27 years now. So thank you. So that's what that's what we did there. And then got caught with the Mike Johnson thing for a moment. You got me good. I tell you, that was a good one. As far as what got me into social media, me and my brother, one of my brothers, and then some friends of mine, we engage. We talk about sports, we talk about politics, we talk about Christianity, we just talk about life. And so over the past several years, one of the things my dad has told me to do, he says, "There's, y'all have this access to social media. I got, gave us some ideas, and he says, you got one of the most powerful tools you can use, and that's your phone." And so, 2017, I did start my channel, but I
Okay.
didn't stay consistent. I didn't stay committed to it, and so about 6 years passed. So back last August, September is when I decided to get serious again because hey, I was still sharing my thoughts and stuff, and I saw people on YouTube and some of the other social media platforms sharing their thoughts. Some of the things I didn't think need to be on air, but
Okay.
people were making a living doing it. So I said, let me and then of course get into politics and seeing the state of our country and all those type of things. I said, maybe I should get, share my thoughts. And that's what I was being encouraged to do. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go get real. Let's do this. And so I got back out there, been sharing my thoughts on here pretty much ever since.
So you're in the ministry.
Yes, sir. I'm in ministry.
So you pastor. What particular aspect of the ministry are you engaged in?
Well, my parents are the pastor, senior and assistant pastor. My father's the senior pastor. My mom's the assistant pastor. And then I'm one of the ministers.
Okay.
So I assist. I'm over the men's ministry, and of course, being in the family, I pretty much fill in spots where I need it.
Okay.
I do
Okay.
from everything. I'm a musician, so I do a number of things.
Oh, what do you play?
I play bass guitar.
Oh, bassists are cool. And I'm not just saying that because you're here. Because if you think of every great musical group, regardless of genre,
Uh-huh.
the bass players are the ones, the drummers, the drummers are crazy because they got a hold of two sticks and they're literally beating the crap out of anything they can smack them against.
Right.
Lead singers have to have a little bit of something, touched up there because they're out there just doing all kinds of whatever it is they're doing. But the bass player is back there.
Hey.
They just stand there and you're looking out there, the look on their face, and you're going, you might be crazy, but I can't tell it if you are. And that's you're good, man. Let's put you in a poker game or some such thing. I don't know. No, bass players are cool. I mean, there's always the rhythm guitarist, there's always the drummer, but it's the bass player that lays down,
We got to hold
guys,
that groove. We
yeah,
got
you got a whole groove.
moving.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Then
So
they let us out just a little bit. They let us out the pocket a little bit, let us give a little taste, and show people what we can really do and spice it up a little bit. Then we bring it right back.
oh man, if you weren't in the ministry and somebody turned you loose down in New Orleans, oh my gosh, money you can make. I can just see it now. So you and I were talking about stage, and there's like a million and one subjects that we can get into, and I want to thank everybody for joining us on a Saturday afternoon because schedules were such that I said, hey, when do you want to do this? And he said, well, the Saturday afternoon works best for me. I'm like, fine, I got no problem with that. There's a lot going on in the world, and I love how that your channel touches on the cultural and the political. And before we even get into politics, I got to ask you something, and this is a question that I guess is a combination of two things. Is a combination of the spiritual and a combination of the cultural generally. As you look at the state of American society and all the various issues that we, the American people, are dealing with, we're fighting about, transitioning of kids. We're fighting about, what is a man and what is a woman. We're fighting about whether trans women should be allowed in ladies' locker rooms. We're fighting about books in schools. We're fighting about that. To me, those aren't necessarily problems as much as they are symptoms. And you're free to disagree with me on this point. And I'm just laying this out before I drop the question. Where do you think we are culturally right now as in America in toto?
In total, I think we're at a very dark place. I think there's a tremendous disconnect between what God wants, and when I say God, because I know America's a great melting pot of different religions. I'm thankful that I can serve the God I want to serve. However, we don't have an identity as a country. I mean, you go to China, they have an identity. Typically, obviously, it's the CCP, but in terms of a deity, many of their people used to serve, if they don't still serve, is Buddha.
Yeah.
Okay. Of course, you do have some Christians there as well. Then you go to a Muslim country, they serve Allah. In America, we're just known for serving God, and that can mean anything to anybody. So I believe there's a huge disconnect, and
Yeah.
which led us down a path of darkness that is, as I think you said very well, that is we're dealing with a lot of symptoms rather than the actual cause, and that is the cause, the disconnect between us and God.
I'll agree with that. I will agree. Let me. I know what the answer. I almost bet I know what the answer you're going to give is. But if someone came to you, let's just say the leadership of America, however you want to define that, political, cultural, everything else, comes to you and says, Darius, this stuff that's going on is nuts.
Mm-hmm.
This is insane. What do we do to make this society better? What do we do to turn this thing around? Because it's quite obvious even if these people aren't religious,
Mm-hmm.
okay, there it's like you said, there's an identity that's being the edges of it are being frayed. And we're
Mm-hmm.
probably past the edges and we're right into the heart of the fabric that's just being torn apart.
Yes.
If the leadership of this country came to you and said, what do we do to make this better? Your answer to them would be what?
I would say we have to go back to the foundation, the moral foundation, that is. What are our values? What are our convictions? We were originally supposed to have been found on Judeo-Christian beliefs. So until we get our moral compass right, any direction we turn is going to be one that leads us to a fork in the road where we're choosing between, politically speaking, two evils, the lesser of two evils. So I believe that's the moral fabric of this country is, as you said, is being torn and stripped or shredded away at the seams. And so people don't know where to go. I mean, you tell and I'm not going to get too heavy on this particular point yet, as much, because I also work in an industry. I serve many different customers. So
Sure.
I be careful on certain things I say, but in terms of dressing transgender, things of that nature,
Understood.
people are being told that they can live the way they want to, what makes them feel good and what makes them feel right. They don't have a right foundation. So when I was growing up, I was taught biblical principles. Thou should not steal, have no other God before God, obey your parents, the relationship between a male and a female, man and woman, those type of things. And so when you start removing the ancient landmarks, as the Bible calls it,
Mm-hmm.
you remove all the boundaries, you remove any signs that there was actually a boundary here. Once you start removing those boundaries, anything goes. Now you basically like the animals.
Yeah.
But even the animals have a certain structure if you really think about it. So if I was talking to a leader, those are some of the points I would definitely I would go back to the foundation, because if you can build a beautiful structure, or even on paper, you can design or have an architect design you one of the most beautiful structures. All you want, you can bring in a interior decorator, talk about how they can make the place look homey and feel good or whatever. If the foundation is not right, if it's not solid enough, if the right ingredients haven't been put together, and if it's not given them the right amount of time to settle, and you don't put the right amount of the foundational materials together, then that building and everybody or everything in it one day will all collapse. And so that's what's happening in this country. We're definitely seeing a destruction of the America we knew even 5-6 years ago.
No, I'll agree with that. I mean, you talk, and you're going to know exactly where I'm going with this. The story of when the children of Israel crossed the Jordan River, and you referenced the quote old landmark,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole reason that Joshua told one person from each of the 12 tribes, go get a big old rock, and we're going to put it right here in the middle of Jordan River.
Mm-hmm.
And people say, well, why are we doing this? So that someday when your kids come back and say, what does this mean? We can say, this was the marker that proves and shows when we crossed the Jordan River, and here's what happened on that day. And it made me think about what's going on in modern society right now. You've got a movement, and this is a slightly off topic, but it's a symptom of the problem. You've got statues of leaders, very famous historical leaders,
Mm-hmm.
Washington, Jefferson, Adams, Franklin, Thomas,
Jefferson. Yeah.
Thomas Jefferson, and others. Oh, well, they were slave
Lincoln. Mm-hmm.
owners. They were slave. Lincoln, look at this statue of Lincoln. He's standing here with a slave under the heel of his hand. How could he possibly do that? You know, those statues are being removed, and it's like, no, but they were there for a reason. They're
Right.
there to tell you these men did something. Doesn't mean
Right.
that everything they did was perfect, but the totality of their lives was more than just one issue that you're looking at through the lens of the 21st century.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I agree with you. The removal of the old landmarks in one form or another, be they spiritual or practically political, or historical, is a dangerous thing, because you have no sense of who you are.
Right.
You have no sense of understanding where you came from.
Exactly. Those landmarks of those statues, as you mentioned as well, has to do with a story. There's a story. When earlier, as we started the show, and we both shared it off air as well. We both have stories. Who are you? Where you come from? What do you do? What do you like? You know, things like that.
Mhm.
Those pillars, those signs, just like the eclipse. The eclipses have a reason that they're there. They're not just theirs. So you can go and take a few pictures. They're there
Mhm.
to signify or to tell a story. And so our country right now is trying to paint us a completely different story now by removing those things, removing the foundation. We have too many gods in this country. And I know how this sounds. I know it's unpopular and probably people don't even give it much thought. But here's the thing. If you have we tend to understand this principle. If there are too many chiefs in the kitchen, you don't get things done.
Mhm.
Too many chiefs in the spirit from a spiritual standpoint. Now, I'm not saying levels. You can always have bosses, okay? Levels of what in the military they call them levels of authority, levels of
Mhm.
command.
Ranks. Mhm.
And so in life we have that. Well, and while I'm grateful for what America stands for in terms of giving us freedom of religion, the one of the things that's been such a benefit is one of the biggest problems that we have right now.
Oh, I'll agree with that wholeheartedly. And we've already got a question from the audience, and this is from one of my regulars, Gypsy. Have you seen the interview between Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan, where everyone in Congress is being blackmailed and scared to death? If that's the case, then how do we recover from this? Have you seen this interview, or
I,
this snippet she's referring to?
I have not. I did see in my feed that they had it. What was it yesterday?
It
Or
dropped yesterday, I think.
okay,
Yes.
drop your say. Yeah, I did see something on it. I am planning on watching this. I haven't had it. However, the statement they're saying as far as blackmail, that part I definitely agree with. I personally do believe in this. Some of the questions have been going around. And I think I mentioned to someone else I know. I know 100% believe. Let's say it this way. Remember when Trump first ran and he said, "Okay, we're going to destroy the deep state." We actually started off with the swamp. He said, "We're going to destroy the swamp. We're going to this and that."
Mhm.
What people didn't hear, and actually I didn't think about it till a few months ago, is Trump is very certain people like Trump. And Brian, I know you understand this completely perfectly. And
Mhm.
first of all, thank your guest for that question.
Yeah.
Um, and I hope I answer your question this way. Um, people like Trump are very particular with their words. They don't just talk. They have meaning behind it.
Yeah, I
And
agree with that.
so a few months ago, when I last heard him say something about the deep state, I said, wait a minute. It started dawning on me. I said, wait a minute. As I'm seeing things really unfold in the political landscape, I said Trump never said he was going to drain the Democrat swamp or the Republican swamp or the liberal swamp. He said we're draining the swamp. And at that time, I still knew there was corruption on both sides. But to this level,
Oh yeah. And this,
so
yeah, it's extraordinary. It really is.
when I think of being blackmailed, do y'all remember a few years ago? What's his name? Matt, the gentleman in the wheelchair.
Craythorne.
Yep.
Craythorne out of North Carolina. Yeah,
Yes.
Congress.
Mike McCarthy shut him down quick when he started exposing some of the secret parties and sex parties that was going on.
Mhm.
I said, why did he shut him down? And then what happened over the past couple of months? You're hearing about P. Diddy. Then and even before that, you're hearing about some of the you're hearing about Disney, you're hearing about Hollywood. Do I believe that some of these, if not all, some of these politicians in Congress are being blackmailed? My answer to that is yes. Now, what do we do about it? It's a big mess. So that's a whole different issue. But in one sense, I would say the whole system needs to be gutted. But even that takes time.
Yeah. Well, I've got the clip. If you want to see it, I'll put it up here real
fast. Oh
yes,
please.
Oh yeah, I think the clip that she's talking about is this one, and I will. This runs about 2.5 minutes. I'll stop it where I think I need to, or Darius, if there's any point you want to, if he says something and you're like, hey, I want to jump in, just shout at me and I'll shut it down. You can make your point. But here's what Gypsy's referring to. This is an interview between Tucker Carlson and Joe Rogan. Rogan had Carlson on his channel.
Members of Congress are terrified of the intel agencies. I'm not guessing at that. They've told me that, including people on the Intel Committee, including people who run the Intel Committee, the people whose job it is to oversee and keep in line these enormous secretive agencies whose budgets we can't even know. They're black budgets. They're the parents. The agencies are the children. They're afraid of the agencies. That's not compatible with democracy. Democracy is a really simple system, even representative democracy. People rule.
Okay.
Do y'all remember the Twitter files?
Yeah. I remember.
What people in America, forgive me, y'all, well, people in America are just too soft on some of these things. You got to do your homework. These intelligence agencies, I mean, some of the stuff I've seen over the past few years, I've known of some of the things that the intel agencies have been doing just because I watch and read things, and definitely not from the mainstream.
Sure.
But here's another telltale sign for you. Pay attention to the television shows and the movies, especially those that have CIA, FBI related type things, or intelligence agencies that are doing things like some of my favorite movies, The Bourne Identity. They have told us to our faces, but in an entertainment form, that this is exactly what they're doing in real time. We just don't think that is real. We think it's make believe or it's fiction. These one of my other favorite TV shows that used to come on called 24 with Kiefer Sutherland.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see these guys? This is not a game. This is not a charade. This stuff is real.
Oh, not to these people. It's not. I agree with you.
So yes, I mean, we can get back to the clip. I want to finish it okay. Clip out. But that's what I want to point out is Twitter files not too long ago came out and it was Elon told us how crooked our CIA and CIA is.
Okay, let's get back to the clip.
They do so through elections. They express their preference through voting. They send their people to the capital city to run the government on their behalf. Whenever you have unelected people who are not accountable to anyone making the biggest decisions, you don't have a democracy. You have something else, another system. I would call it a tyranny or whatever you want to call it. It's not a democracy. So that's like super obvious. It's playing out in front of everyone and no one cares and no one does anything about it. And I think the reason is because they're threatened. And if you look at the committee chairmen who allow this shit to happen year after year, they're all, and I don't know, people say, oh, they're compromised or being blackmailed or whatever. I don't have evidence of that, but I know them and they all have things to hide. I know that for a fact. And so it's not a stretch of imagination to imagine that, you know, some committee chairman who's allowing warrantless spying on Americans to continue or whatever abuse they're allowing, knowing fully or hiding the truth about UAPs, ignoring the UAP Disclosure Act of 2023. Like, why are they doing that? It's not impossible to imagine that some guy with a drinking problem or a weird sex life, and that's very common up there. That's why they're doing it. Because they don't want to be exposed. I don't have evidence of that. I don't have proof of that.
Right.
But that's not a crazy thing to assume that could be happening. And I said to somebody, a very powerful person the other day in a conversation in my kitchen, an elected official holds a really senior position, a very famous person. I was going crazy. I was so mad about all this stuff and about the warrantless spying and about the funding for these insane wars. And I said to the guy who serves in one of the legislative bodies, I got so mad my dogs were afraid. They're like, well, why are you yelling? Because I don't yell at home. But I was like, all these people are controlled. They're all, got weird sex lives and all these things are hiding and they're being blackmailed by the intel agencies. And he said, and I'm quoting, I know. Was like, okay, so at this point we're just sort of admitting that's real. Like, why do we allow that to continue?
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That is,
Woo!
Years ago, I had a professor who was one of my teachers in government, and he said, I don't know if I watch American politics because of fascination or I really like watching a train wreck. And when you hear comments like that, it's like, I'm not watching a train wreck. I'm watching a multi-line train wreck all coming together at the same time. But
yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. Now you said something that is fascinating to me, and I want to get into a side subject. Where you get your information. Because you said you don't go to conventional sources. When you're trying to determine what's really going on, or you're trying to get to the bottom line, or the 411, or getting the spilling the tea, as the kids say these days, where do you go to get your information? And then once you answer that, I want to kind of shift into a side subject.
Okay. Back in 2020, as things were starting to unfold and we saw that Biden was going to win, and a friend of mine had sent me some videos from BitChute, and I would listen to some of the other creators on those platforms talk about some of the subjects I knew some about, but not a whole lot about, with the political, political information, there's dark operations like DARPA, HARP, things like that. And so I stayed with that. Then, of course, I come across Rumble, and as it became more prominent, I started following things on Rumble. And what I started doing was typing in questions, asking, for certain documentaries on certain subjects. Or like I said about Ukraine, if I heard something about Ukraine, I said, I don't know much about it. Well, I know they're not going to show it on the mainstream. So I say, okay. So I started looking at, I have to send you a link. But there's another link. It does not necessarily subscribe to all these different things, but what it does is has a huge database. Man, it'll blow your mind. I can't get through it, so much information, but it talks about aliens, all this kind of stuff. So anyway, I look at other channels, Rumble, BitChute, primarily those two. And there's another one, the article platform, the one I get a lot of information from, is called Bibliotech Applies. I could never get the word right.
I think I've heard of it.
Heard of it? Okay. And so now you have to be discerning, obviously, because I was going down the rabbit hole. Some information you got to be very careful about.
Sure.
But generally speaking, those are mainly my go-to platforms. And then I listen to certain other, get some recommendations or suggestions from some friends of mine about certain people to listen to.
Let me ask you a question, because you referenced something we were talking backstage that your dad's recommended to you, one of the reasons that you got into social media, and I want your take on this. Right now, there's YouTube, and it's the big. I mean, look, let's be honest. It's the biggest quarterback in the room. It can throw the ball 100 yards.
Right.
It's got the biggest number of subscribers. It's got the biggest number of everything. But you've got Rumble, BitChute, Odyssey, Telegram. You've got all these different alternatives that are out there. And my question, I guess, is to pull it back and give it a little more broadness. Where do you think we are in terms of the struggle between what I will call gatekeeper media, in other words, traditional MSNBC, CNN, NBC, ABC, CBS, the New York Times, the traditional forms of media where some people get their information, versus new media, social media, where some people would argue there's more freedom. It depends upon the platform you're talking about, of course.
Right.
But where do you think we are? And also, where do you think that, and again, this is a broad question, but do you think the American people are starting to come to the realization, why do I watch the evening news every night? These characters are lying to me, man. You're trying to, I'm going to use a very crass expression, and I apologize. You're pissing down my back, and you're trying to convince me it's raining. This makes no sense. And my apologies for the crassness of the expression, but it drives home the point.
Yeah.
I mean, you're trying to tell me it's one thing. I can obviously see it's something else. Where do you think we are in terms of that struggle between the two modes of information? And also, where do you think the American people are, generally speaking, at this point, as far as like, I don't know if I really believe you guys anymore.
I'll answer your last question first. I think there are more people awake than there was 4 years ago.
Okay.
Just because people are seeing and feeling. I mean, you can see Trump's support is going through the roof, and I don't think with these indictments that's going against him, he would have been this popular. Which tells me, I'm convinced of this thing, and I kind of developed this phrase last year as I was observing things. Before I say it, I'll go and answer the other two questions. Is this the struggle? Is I think a lot of people know that we're phasing out the old traditional way of media. It's phasing out, and it's starting to phase out real quick. I mean, everybody can be a journalist. You just pick up your phone and you can go and you can be the 5 o'clock news if you want to be.
Yeah.
So yes, I think that there's a tremendous change about to take place, and it could happen in the next maybe 2 to 5 years, if it take that long. But with technology increasing at such a rapid rate, in 90 days, I have an i14 Pro Max. 90 days, that's going to be for some people obsolete because they got the next 15, 16. So, I think we're definitely seeing it goes back to the ancient landmark, if you will, but generation after generation changes. I like some of the moves. I like having the power to control what it is I see and not have to just sit here and listen to these pundits tell me stuff. The bad part about it in terms of the gatekeepers is that how much power do we yet still have? Because what we've seen government do is they consolidate power, and they do it very well. And they monopolize. I mean, look at Google, look at Microsoft. Look at BlackRock, what they're doing. They got their hands in some of everything. So I think we're at a point where the things that, as far as Christians are concerned, that I'm just using this word, end times. I believe we're in them, but I believe there's a delay happening because God wants to do something even within this time frame before everything just hits the fan. So I believe we're watching, even we're getting so many exposures to help awaken more and more people to the fact that it's like the Matrix. It's one of the best. Andrew Tate talks about that a lot. My dad, before Andrew Tate, I learned that from my dad, because when Matrix came out back in 98, 99, I've never done a movie like this before, Brian, but I went back to the theater probably 8 times to watch that same movie when it first came out. That's part one, because it resonated. I was like, man, this seems so much like the real world. So what we're watching is what they keep saying to us is entertainment. It's actually real life, or the real life they want us to live. So that's what I believe we're watching, is that unfolding, and people are starting to really wake up to it. In my opinion, not fast enough and not enough, but people are definitely more awake today than they were 4 years ago.
I'll agree with that. And since we're sort of at a good stopping point, my name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. I am joined by commentator and social media creator Darius Simpson. He has a channel on YouTube. He has a Twitter page. I got another question from the audience. And by the way, if you have questions for Darius or for me or for both of us, throw them in. We'll be happy, whether they come in on Rumble or whether they're coming on YouTube. Gypsy asks you this question: what do you think is going on with Black women in elite and high profiles of positions throughout the U.S.? Fannie, Letitia, Tiffany. Oh, Tiffany Hanyard is a whole piece of work, man. She is the boss hog of Illinois. I'm not kidding you. I used to think it was J.B. Pritzker, the governor. Oh, heck no. She makes J.B. look like a piker compared to what she's getting away with up there. Muriel Bowser, the mayor of D.C. What is it? Why is it?
I like you, Brian.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, hey, we're going to definitely talk beyond the show. I like you, man.
I will. I mean, as I tell people all the time, I will always tell you exactly what I think, and God help you if you're not ready to hear it. That's all I can tell you. But I mean, okay. Would I expect in the 21st century that women, regardless of whether they be white or black or Hispanic or Asian or what, do I expect them to rise to positions of prominence? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it, however, it seems like in this day and age, there is a predominance of African American women in high profile positions who are absolutely, abjectly corrupt? I'm sorry. There's just no other way of saying it.
Right.
So take it and run with it, brother.
Have at it. Thank you for your
Have at
question. Well, that has actually been one of my biggest concerns too. I've been noticing this and watching this, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. First of all, it's no secret that in terms of black supporters for Trump, it's mostly conservative black men versus conservative black women. That the percentage is still way down. So I think power has gone to a lot of these women's heads. I think they have really jumped on the bandwagon of racism. Now, I'm gonna say this real quick because I know it's a huge subject, and I think Obama really, when Obama talked about fundamental change, I think it was in 2008 when he first ran, if not 12. He said there's gonna be fundamental change. My question then was, well, what would that look like? Well, we see it under him. The topic or the focus on racism became big and prominent again, except it didn't look like it was back in the 50s and 60s and so on.
Sure.
And so as of late, you hear more and more about, women empowerment. Number one, I have no problem with women being empowered. Men and women. This is the way I understand it. God did not create men and women to compete against each other, but to complement each other. And so I'm all about my sister, getting her payday, getting into a powerful position that she qualifies for, number one, as a person, not by her skin color. Because then, in my opinion, you're saying, in this regard, you're saying you're hiring me based on race. So I'll get mad at you for firing me based on race, but I can't get mad at you or say something about you hiring me because of my skin color. So, people playing the hypocritical, this line here.
Sure.
Some of these ladies in question, I think they also feel empowered because they are also Democrat women. Okay, their belief system, their political stances, which also means they have certain convictions that Democrats. Again, I'm not hating on all Democrats or nothing, but I just don't agree. And so these ladies feel empowered because they are being allowed to get away with this corruption because they are supporting the Democratic agenda, in my view. Okay, they're not bettering their communities. Talk to the people in the community, not these people in the head. Talk about it's all about the people, American people. Now, I want to hear all that. I want to hear what the people have to say, and I'm listening. And I know mainstream media won't show all what these people are actually saying. And so, like in Chicago, where's Tiffany? What state she's in?
Dalton, Illinois. It's Dalton, Illinois. It's just outside Chicago. It's a suburb.
Okay, Chicago. And so she is basically acting in a black community. They say that's being ratchety. She's been very ratchety. She's throwing up a big fitting attitude. She feels entitled. She can do what she wants without question. And so I believe they are being behind closed doors, and it's just my opinion, behind closed doors, they are receiving all the support. Why? Because they're trying to get the black supporters, particularly women, to stay with the Democrat Party. It's all about power. And then they're saying you're a woman. And a lot of white men are afraid, and women are afraid to really say anything to these people because they're going to be labeled as racist. And so these women, it's an intelligent move in one sense, or intelligent move and in a business sense, to say, okay, I got a hook. They can't talk about me because I'm a woman and because I'm black. Why? Because in the media, you're gonna be labeled a certain way. So I think they have been empowered to act the way they are, and they feel like they're not gonna be held accountable.
You just brought up something. One of my favorite. Fannie Willis, who goes by so many different nicknames on my social media channel. I started out just calling her Fanny Pack. Well, then after her dramatic one woman show in the courtroom down there in Georgia, I came up with a new nickname for her, which is Drama Mama.
That's good.
No, and I want you to think about this, and you'll understand why I call her this. Now, people be like, "Oh, I can't believe you call her that." Okay, so she wasn't even scheduled to testify.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, she gets up there because Nathan Wade's getting chopped into like mincemeat.
Right.
She gets up there, and Ashley, I forget what her last name was, the one of the attorneys for the defendants in the case,
Mm-hmm.
is questioning Fannie Willis. Okay, fine.
Uh,
I mean, look, I don't watch courtrooms all the time. I mean, there's a whole world of YouTube that does that sort of thing.
Right.
But the little bits of this that I saw, particularly when she was testifying, I have never seen a more pompous, arrogant, entitled, self-important woman, and just she literally sits down, and no sooner she says, "I need 3 copies of that." Excuse me? How about you ask me for it as opposed to demand? You're on the witness stand. You're not in control right now.
Right.
And I'm looking at the judge, and I really wish I'd have been this lawyer, because I'd have loved to look at Judge McAfee and go, "Are you going to put a stop to this? She's running running this courtroom. You or her."
Right.
I mean, it was the most insane thing I think I'd ever watched. And what got me was the one answer she gave about cash in her house.
Yeah.
So she's asked, "Why reimbursed him in cash?"
Mm-hmm.
Well, okay, fine. Do you have records? What do you mean, do I have records? Well, okay, can you demonstrate where the cash came from? Well, I mean, do you have bank records showing that you took out withdrawals? I mean, the fact that you're keeping cash in your house. I mean, look, I come from Appalachian culture.
Uh-huh.
I've still got generations of people in the 21st century that hate the idea of a bank. They go, they cash their check, they keep it in the house.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
We're talking multi-thousands of dollars. Okay. I'm not surprised by the fact she's keeping cash in the house.
Mm-hmm.
But at least they can trace it. This
Right.
woman can't even give an answer. And she's like, well, I don't have to answer to you. Well,
Right.
the question that I would have loved to have asked her to rebut that is, okay, so let's just assume we were sitting in different seats. In other words, I were where you are and you are where I am. Would you accept the answer that says that I cannot, nor do I have to source this cash?
Wow.
Of course you wouldn't.
Mm-mm.
But yet I ask you the question, and you're so self-important and entitled that you're like, how dare you question me? Do you not know who I am?
Right.
You know,
Right.
but it just blows my mind. Now I want to shift gears a little bit and ask you about something else that to me is one of the more fascinating things about this election that we're going into. And I want your broad take on this. Ever since you can make an argument, the passage of the 64 Civil Rights Act and the 65 Voting Rights Act, the African American vote in America has almost been a monumental block. Monolithic is probably the word I'm looking for. A monolithic voting block for the Democrat Party.
Mm-hmm.
But ever since Trump came along, he's chipping into that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, every poll I'm looking at says that Trump's getting anywhere from, let's just say conservatively, low teens, as I've heard estimates as high as like low 30s. I don't think it's going to be that much.
Mm-hmm.
What's going on here? I mean, are we seeing a demographic shift, not necessarily to the Republicans, but to Trump? And where do you think this is going long term?
That's a great distinction. It's not Republican, it's Trump.
Yeah.
I think people are seeing these, especially the African American men, are really seeing Trump for who he is and what's happening to him. Because for those who remember, if you go back to not post, but pre-Trump's run for office, he was famous amongst a lot of the black rappers. He even helped fund Jesse Jackson's run back in the day, I think for president back in the 80s.
Yeah, I remember this.
And so he was very well known. Oprah had him on the show. People love to hear Donald Trump's thoughts. Even back then, hey, are you thinking about running? They wanted him to run for president back then.
Mm-hmm.
He had some of the same views then that he does now. Mm-hmm. And so in terms of why his the percentage of the black vote is now increasing for him, is because they're seeing the attacks. They feel, and this is what I've heard from number of the videos, is that people are saying they're doing to Trump what they do to us.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there is a certain level of attacks that have happened to blacks. That is no secret. Many people still believe that the entire system is corrupt. I don't disagree with that. The problem is you don't have all the data to actually say that in terms of the motives of people's hearts. You can say, anyway, that's a whole different stuff. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go on that tangent. But in terms of the black vote, Trump is the way, listen how he carries himself. Listen to how he talk. You got this billionaire who can actually, at least he can hold a conversation with anybody, from people in the boardroom to people on the street. Then he shows that he's a man of the people. He don't just talk the game. This is what I saw. One of my mentors who've been following politics since before I was born. I'm 45. Since before I was born, said they've never seen a president keep his word like they've seen Trump do. So what people are doing is they're not just watching, as you mentioned earlier about the media. They're not just being told something's raining and it's not. People are watching for themselves and listening for themselves. And again, now you got media all over the place. So people are actually videotaping for themselves, and they're hearing Trump say what they have wanted to say or been saying the whole time, but nobody will listen. And now Trump here. So that's why I believe he's become much more popular.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And for my part, I'm going to throw something out there, and you can just take it and run with it, or tell me I'm full of crap or whatever. To me, there's a lot of aspects about the 2024 election that are fascinating.
Okay.
And one of them is, I think, and again, feel free to tell me I'm full of it, we are at a generational inflection point. If you stop and think about it, we're never going to have another candidate like Trump or Biden, again, of that same generation. These are two good old-fashioned boomers. Now, it's not saying you might not have another boomer run for president, but going forward, you're going to have Gen X and you're going to have the millennials. Ooh, yeah. I put more faith in Gen X than I do. Okay, but that said, you've got a generational inflection point. I'll also argue you have got a demographic inflection point, in that I think more and more African Americans, I don't think Donald Trump's going to win the majority of the African American vote. He's going to get a good chunk of it. If he gets above 15%, I will not be shocked. Right. If he gets above 20, it's lights out for Joe Biden. He's done. He's just done. Yeah. The Hispanic vote is even more fascinating than the African American vote, in that, okay, they might be economic populist, maybe economic liberal, maybe. But culturally, they're just about like any member of the Christian Coalition from back in the 80s and 90s, man. They are down the line Roman Catholic. They are not for this whole transgender nonsense. They're not for any of that. They're looking at what the Democrats are doing, and they're going, "What the heck is the matter with you guys? You brought me across the border, and you want me to vote for this? Why shouldn't I go back to my own country and vote for it?" I mean, that's where I think we're at. Now, I was trying to find it real fast here. There's a couple of videos. I'll tell you what. Let me see if I can find this real quick. There's a video of Donald Trump walking into a Chick-fil-A walking into a Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, he was down there on various whatevers. And then there's a video, and I don't know if you've seen it, where Joe Biden walks into a Wawa in Philly.
I've seen them both.
Oh my God. Okay. Now, I told my audience the other night, I was doing my Thursday night live stream. In a previous lifetime, I used to work in politics. Okay. And there are certain things that you've got to do for anything that the candidate is going to appear at. One, you've got to get a crowd, and two, you got to get the press. Lay aside the question of the press for a minute. Let's just talk about the crowd. Okay. Donald Trump walks into a Chick-fil-A in Atlanta, Georgia. Now, people can sit here and argue, "Oh, okay, well, probably they got a whole bunch of people in there just to make sure. Hey, by the way, Donald Trump's coming into a Chick-fil-A." Maybe they were already there. Who knows? But the second he hit the door, they were like, "We love you, man. We're supporting you." Joe Biden walks into a Wawa in Philly with the mayor of the city, and no one cares. I mean, they're looking at him like, "Can you please get out of here?" Really? I'm trying to do my Wawa thing here, and you're messing up my vibe. Get out. I
Right.
mean, it's fascinating to watch. I mean, I saw a video where Joe Biden was giving a speech somewhere. I'm pretty sure it was in Pennsylvania this week because he's literally like, he may as well just buy a house in that state somewhere because that's how much he's going to be sitting there in Pennsylvania this year. He said, and I'm almost quoting him, "Yeah, I never thought I'd ever see when little kids are giving me the finger and saying F Joe Biden." And I'm sitting here going, and you're surprised by this. Why?
Right.
Like, really? You know, I want to go back to something that you brought up. And I'll back it up with this. The Atlanta mugshot. Trump's Atlanta mugshot.
Mhm.
Never have I seen one man's picture in a mugshot do more to actually help him
Right.
than I did that. I've
Right.
seen politicians try and work their way through, they'll smile their way through a mugshot. Like I remember years ago, Tom DeLay got mugshotted down in Texas somewhere. He's
Mhm.
like being real cheeky.
Yeah.
Trump just standing there like he's got this look on his face, like, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
I agree with you. I think African American men are looking at that going, man, I can't believe you guys are doing this to this guy.
Oh no.
It's interesting.
When that happened, I said, I know the media pundits was talking about, oh, he's going to use this to really help his campaign. You're right. I would too, especially when you're innocent. But when I remember when I first saw that shot, that's his mugshot. I said he looked like a boss, but he also looked like he finna handle some business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It just I saw that picture and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me. We've got another question from the audience, and it's actually two of them. One's from Gypsy. I mean, I think I know the answer to this question, but I mean, given your political beliefs, are there certain members of, and if you don't want to answer this, I get it because this is family stuff. It's up to you. But I mean, given your political beliefs, how much tension is there at the Thanksgiving dinner table? Let's put it like that, because sometimes let's be honest, you got somebody on one side of the table that believes one thing, you got somebody that's like, I can't believe this guy believes this. Then you got to look across each other and eat dinner.
Right.
How's that working out for you?
I was working out great.
Okay.
Honestly. I won't speak so much on what my family believes in. I would say it like this.
Okay.
I was not raised to drink the Democrat juice.
Fair enough.
Okay. So we taught to vote based on our Christian beliefs, and that's not just a saying or a cliche.
Mm-hmm.
When we look to vote, what I was taught, with me and my siblings were taught, is to make sure we vote based on our values and who aligns more with our values. So the dinner table, in short, in that regard, I would say is very, very peaceful and it's very good.
Okay. Got another question from the audience, and one of my regulars and one of my favorite supporters of the channel. Can you ask Darius what he thinks is the real reason why we keep funding Ukraine? And we were gonna get to this subject, but we may as well just go here after you answer this. So, is it money laundering? What the heck are we funding Ukraine? Can you answer this question for this lady?
Well, thank y'all for your questions. I'm really enjoying this. I personally believe, based on the research I have done, is that it's really big. It is money laundering operation. I mean, it's no secret. At least if you go back to 2014, they was talking about how much of a hotbed of corruption Ukraine is. I mean, it's one of the most corrupt countries in the world. And so it's not just money laundering either, though. Look into you'd have to look into human trafficking, child, I hate to say this, but child sacrifice, all those type of things, I think plays a big role through cities or countries like Ukraine, where there's no real accountability. So yes, I believe a lot of money laundering is one of the reasons.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with you there. I mean, what gets me about it is you've got, and for folks who are not aware, they just passed out of the House today another $60 billion supplemental for Ukraine. And the part that gets me about it, and they'll freely admit this in the debates, the money as far as munitions will not get to Ukraine for a year. And at the rate it's going, and I'll recommend somebody to you, a couple of guys to you, if you're wanting some, if you're not following them already, the Duran, Alexander, the Duran, the Duran. They are two guys out of Europe. One's in London and the other's out of Cyprus.
I've heard a little bit about them.
Alexander Macoris and Alex Crisafaro. They are probably two of the best people as far as keeping you up with what's going on in terms of European politics, and they are talking about this all the time.
Okay.
And at the rate it's going, the Russians could have this thing wrapped up by late summer or early fall. As far as dictating the terms, okay, we're done. Now here's how you're going to handle this going forward. So, yeah, go ahead.
People have to ask this question. I had sent you those couple of videos if you have a chance to check those out. I mean,
I will
look at them out. But there's a couple of documentaries that I sent to Brian. Here's some of the questions we must ask about Ukraine. Why is it taking Russia this long to go through Ukraine? I mean, there's more to the story. That's the point I'm really making. And I guess the Duran, the gentleman of the Duran will actually break that down. But I think it's a whole lot more to the story. No, I personally do not trust our media at large. They have proven to lie to us. And then when they do get called on the carpet about it, the retractions or the so-called apologies don't get near this amount of attention or airtime as them peddling these false stories. There's another documentary I had seen a couple of years ago, and I think it's called "Who Really Rules the World or Runs the World," and it showed many media parroting the exact same script. And I'm talking about across the country. They could air at different times, but whoever did this documentary put all these together, and you listen to them, they were saying the exact same thing. So I don't care what anybody says, and you can believe what you want to believe, but I vote my convictions. I live by my convictions. Not perfect, but I live by my convictions. And all I look for is the truth. That's why that's one of the reasons I started Real Talk, is because I want to be able to have real conversations like Brandon and I have it. That's why when you reached out to me and I checked out your channel and things of that age, I was like, this is nice. This is good. I mean, I'm establishing these relationships, networking with like-minded people who can share information with me that I don't know. I don't know everything, but I'm just looking for people who, like myself, all we're interested in is truth. We may not agree 100% on everything, but all I'm looking for is the truth. And that's what I look for with Ukraine. Again, in answer to the young lady who asked the question, I just did a little bit of research on Ukraine. It came across this documentary by Oliver Stone, and it gives you a different take. It goes back to 2014, and he actually sat down with Vladimir Putin, and another one, I think, in 2018. That came out, and he interviewed some of the former Ukrainian leaders or presidents, prime ministers, and you'll be surprised. Well, you probably won't be surprised, Brian, but Oliver asked him about one of the most powerful contacts. I forget the name of the leader right now, but asked this former Ukrainian leader, who is one of your biggest contacts? Guess whose name he mentioned? A former vice president, now president.
Aw, I'm shocked. I say shocked.
So there's a lot of corruption. The point is, there's a lot of corruption, and the American people have been made to swallow the blue pill. But I believe a lot of people, so to speak, are starting to swallow the red pill.
Well, and that's where, I mean, look, regardless of whether someone's conservative, liberal, Democrat, Republican, if you're looking at it honestly, even if you're not even political, okay, so we're sending multi-millions of dollars to Ukraine to secure their border, yet I don't see you doing a whole lot to stop the 9 million people who crossed ours in the South for the past 3 years.
Man,
that's, I mean, to go back to something you said, that people are having their eyes open. I was having a conversation with another content creator. I interviewed him a long time ago. His specialty is the business side of Hollywood. And we got into, and I asked him, I was like, I hear people mention this all the time. I said, in your honest opinion, and you've been doing this longer than I have, I said, how big of a threat are guys like you and me to the mainstream media and to the entertainment industry? He said, we are existential. I said, why? He said, do me a favor, Darius, hold up your camera again, your phone. With that phone, you can do what the mainstream media does in terms of news coverage, or what Hollywood does in terms of entertainment, at a fraction of the cost, and pump it out to more people and have more influence.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah. And they know it. And the worst part is they know it. They absolutely know that what I just said is completely true.
Wow.
And it's just, I mean, I saw something the other day that thrilled my heart because of who's involved. Piers Morgan has a show. I don't know if he was doing it on Fox or he was doing it on his own channel or where it was, but he had two different social media content creators on to talk about the state of Hollywood and the movie industry. And I know who they both are. I mean, I'll just drop names. One of them is a fellow out of Scotland. His real name is Will Jordan. He's a published author, but he goes by the social media handle The Critical Drinker.
Okay.
The other guy he had on was a gentleman named Gary Beekler, who goes by the social media nomenclature Nerderotic. And these guys were toe to toe with two media opinion people, whoever they were. And I thought, oh my gosh, they've broken through the mainstream. The mainstream media is reaching out to them going, hey, look, I may not agree with you on everything. Come on. And the fact that those two guys, whether you agree with them on everything, disagree with them, whatever, the fact that they were being invited on a mainstream news channel, a program, is absolutely extraordinary.
Wow.
Because it's finally reached the point, I won't say the dam's broken, but the cracks are such that it's getting through, and the mainstream knows it. But since we're at 4:30 in the afternoon, let me do a real quick commercial for both of us. My name is Brian Trippin. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. This is Chattin on the Porch. I'm here with commentator and content creator Darius Simpson. His channel on YouTube is Real Talk with Darius, and you can follow him also on Twitter. So let's shift gears for a little bit. And by the way, if you're not subscribed to his channel on YouTube, do me a favor, give him a sub. And if you're not subscribed to my channel, what the heck are you doing? People, come on. Help us out. Look at us.
Help us out.
Exactly. Yeah, by all means. And I know everybody here is subscribed, or daggone, you better be. Let's shift gears and talk about the future. And by that I mean where you think the country's going from here. I mean, the things that ail the country right now are not going to be solved with politics.
No.
I agree with the late Andrew Breitbart. Politics is downstream from culture. But as you look ahead and you look at the generation that's leading us now versus the generations that are coming up behind us, what do you see ahead for the United States?
Well, that's a very good question, Brian. And I have given some thought to that. I'm concerned. Well, I don't like using this word often, but I would say it here. I'm scared if things stay the way they are.
I'll agree with that.
Because you mentioned earlier about the Generation Z, Generation X, the baby boomers who are practically in the process of dying out. So you have these people who, I mean, if you go back to the 60s, for example, 60s, 70s, back then the colleges, you had the drugs, everything was cool. And it was wartime, it was past wartime and people were against the war somewhere around, I may get some of my time off, but the mentalities of the people were being shaped through this education system. Okay. And so you fast forward to now, when you see these riots, these protests happening in our streets, the question is where do they come from? We're dealing with effects. The question is, where's the cause and when did this start? If the current climate or the current culture, the current mindset is going on right now, if it permeates and stays another 5 to 10 years from now, we would not recognize America. Therefore, people like us, we would definitely be on the extinction list, in my view. And to me, that's a scary view, but that's how I see it right now. Now, if we have a a positive disruption that takes place to supplant that, and we're given a window of opportunity for something better, where we can restore some of that ancient foundation, those ancient landmarks, and some of us, people of our generation, actually get a greater foothold using our platforms. Hopefully become more popular, where we can actually share these thoughts with the following generation and help challenge the current ideologies and philosophies and replace them, at least some of them. We ain't gonna stop all of it, but if we can get a foothold, enough of a foothold, then there is hope. So people have to be willing to step up and do their part.
Absolutely. So let's talk about your channel. You said you started back in 2016. You picked it up again in earnest last fall. As I'm looking through some of the content, and it's a really interesting mix of stuff. You got shorts, you got videos, you got live streams. It looks like. How do you decide what subject you want to get into, or what really flips your switch? Is like, I got to do something about this. I got to do something on this subject.
Well, everything you see on there, things that interest me, first of all, because you have to be interested in what you do. But I also pay attention to the news cycles as well, because I also want to put something out there that the people are interested in as well. So I have to try to balance everything out. So if I come across, I just use something very simple. Before I got on the channel, I saw your tweet. I'll still call it tweet, as we talked earlier. I saw your tweet, and we hold the same values. Okay, so we believe the same thing. So I went ahead and said, okay, I'm going to repost it. Well, that's what I see in on YouTube. If I see a clip or hear some news breaking, like with this $95 billion Ukraine package, then I say, okay, I need to go ahead and say something about that. At least post a short. That's why I started mostly with shorts. And my goal, of course, is to put more and more long form content out there. But these are things I'm interested in. These are topics I like. And I'm convinced there are other people who, either in whole or as a part, like those same topics.
No, and it's interesting because I remember years ago growing up on the great Rush Limbaugh, and he always made a point about listeners to his show, and that they'd come together and realize, hey, you mean you're listening to this guy too, or you're agreeing with this guy? And people figure out, I'm not alone. I'm not out there alone. I don't believe my belief, and I'm all by myself. And I think that's one of the truly blessings of social media, in that the way I liken it, what's going on right now, is there isn't a spot. It's not even a physical place as much as it is an intellectual gathering point. And in this place are people like the Steve Bannons, the Peter Navarros, the Dave Bratts, the people from the political and economic world. They're coming to the spot. And then you've got, in the nerd space, you got the Drinker, you got Nerdrotic, you got the Geeks and Gamers crowd, you got all that. They're coming to the spot. On the free speech side, you've got people like Chrissy Mayer and Gino Biscotti and Anthony Cumia, stand-up comedians, of one form or ilk or another. They're coming to the same place. The walk-away movement, you've got Straka and Mike Harlow and Carrie Smith, Gothics and others. They're all coming to the same spot. And everybody's looking around at each other going, I know why I'm here. What the heck are you doing here? And the other guy's like, I was going to ask you the same thing. But the more they start talking, the more they realize we have more in common than we ever knew before. Why didn't we do this sooner?
Right.
And to your point that you made earlier, the awakening, I think that's what's happening now. I'm like you. I wish it would awaken a whole lot faster than what it is, but it's getting there. And like you say, we're not going to agree on everything. I mean, I think the debate on Ukraine is a perfect example of that. I have, followers on my channel who are just, we've got to back up Ukraine. Me, I'm not, no.
Right.
If there is not a vital national U.S. security interest, we're not putting a dime into it.
Right.
And speaking of foreign policy, I just saw a question, and I got to ask you about this one.
Okay.
This is from Gypsy. Does Darius have an opinion about the Israel-Hamas situation? Because Black Americans in Detroit are very upset with the Hamas support. So, because, I'll before you answer this, I'm going to throw this out here, and you can tell me I'm full of it.
Mhm.
I have no problem supporting Israel because they are our ally. I'm using that quote very loosely. The reason that I'm using it loosely is this. Was it wrong that they were attacked on October 7th? Absolutely.
Mhm.
I have no problem with Israel defending itself and trying to take care of Hamas as far as being able to prevent them from being able to do any more harm, not just to Israel, but to the Palestinian people in Gaza.
Right.
Okay. That I can respect.
Right.
When the Israelis, however, launch a missile, drop it into Lebanon, targeting a Iranian diplomatic outpost, that's a problem. Because at that point, that's not a question of self-defense. From my perspective, that's provocation.
Mhm.
And the Iranians, for their part, launched a bunch of missiles, launched a bunch of drones, but warned everybody 72 hours before they did it, yeah, we're going to do this. And they're trying to make the point, guys, we kind of have to do this, but cool it.
Right.
So, all right, what's going on? Your take on the whole Israel Hamas situation?
Well, first of all, thank you, Gypsy. She asked some very good questions.
She usually does.
As far as the Black Americans and Hamas is concerned, firstly, I can't speak for those. Well, no, I agree with those in Detroit, those who stand against the pro-Hamas stance. Let me say it this way: as a Bible-believing Christian, or I like to identify myself as a kingdom citizen,
Right.
is God. The scriptures tell us to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. So that's what I do. Do I agree with everything the Israelite government may or may not do? No. I do not have all the information. Like most people, I have what the mainstream media shows me, and I may get from some other platforms. But at the end of the day, whether people like or dislike the nation of Israel and its decision making, I'm totally with God's vantage point. That's who my primary allegiance is to. And I have to preface that way because I know this is a very hot topic. In terms of Hamas, I pray for peace. I pray for the protection of all innocent parties on both sides. Okay. Now, who provoked this war to begin to happen? I don't know. Do I believe? I mean, could have been questionable. Is it questionable as for what Brian said, as far as what they did in bombing? I'm sorry, say it again, Brian. They bombed.
Yeah, the Israelis launched a military strike into Lebanon and hit a Iranian, not Lebanese, a Iranian diplomatic outpost.
Right. Was that the other night when they responded?
That was about a week ago.
Okay,
About a week, 10 days ago when the Israelis did it.
Okay. So yes, I'll say it this way, and this is not me being diplomatic, it's me being as honest as I can possibly be. If Israel did something wrong in this matter, they had no right or no reason, true rhyme or reason, to hit this diplomatic outpost. And it was the wrong thing to do, wrong decision to do. Then I'm against that. If the things that Hamas is doing now, most people already know that's a terrorist organization. So I'm definitely against a terrorist organization. I don't care what they call. I don't care what country they're from. I'm against terrorism. Period.
Mm-hmm.
There have been innocent people, such as what you mentioned, Brian, about Palestinians who are caught in the mix. There are some Palestinians, from what I've heard, there are Palestinians who's for destroying the Israelite nation.
Sure.
And then there are those who they probably want just a peaceful existence, but the Palestinian government, who's headed by Hamas and are supported by Iran, are heading that government. They use their Palestinian citizens as human shields.
Yeah,
that's public knowledge, even though mainstream media won't talk about it near as much. Just like we found out about a couple months ago, not a couple months ago, but back in October, and when Israel started launching their offensive, the hospital, bomb hit the parking lot, and everybody says, "Oh, Israel just evil. They just evil." And then the truth come out maybe 24 hours, 48 hours later, come out and says, "Well, actually, it wasn't the hospital that was bombed; it was the parking lot." So there was no casualties. So the question is who is actually telling the story? if you're a person who holistically want to believe in CNN, MSNBC, even Fox, this is why it's important for us to discern from the inside and not just listen to the outward chatter, because any of us can be deceived. I know I've been deceived before. You know, when Bush led us in Iraq, I was deceived. I don't now, you know, in hindsight, now I'm like, and I've gained some more knowledge and stuff. It's like, okay, was it all about oil or was it about protecting America? You know, so it's tough, but as a African American or Black American, I am not for what I'm hearing pro Hamas people coming out saying death to America, death to Israel stuff. I'm anti that. Americans need to get on board and understand what's being said. Our country is being turned upside down, and if things persist the way they are, then yes, it's my firm conviction. Probably the next 12 to 24 months, you will not recognize America.
Agreed. Let me ask you a question. When you see the protests in favor of Palestine in cities like New York, Detroit, other places where bridges are being, like the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco, Brooklyn, and other places, what goes through your mind? And while you answer that, I'm going to step away for just 1 second.
Okay. I'm concerned because where is the pro-American attitude or mindset or hurrahs? I'm not seeing that. I'm seeing people say, okay, pro Hamas, and we need to defend them. It's the same. It's really the same argument as what's going on in Ukraine. No, we got to protect all the Ukrainians at all costs. So we're sending these countless billions of dollars without any accountability. Then we're destroying our own infrastructure, our own ideals and philosophies are being cast aside and is being replaced with completely different set of ideals. Does that not concern anybody? Those are the things that bother me. You had there's an attack going on in our country. You got certain bridges that have been hit, for example, by these barges. Some people believe it could be an accident. Well, you don't see them in the media right now, but does that mean that that's old news? Oh, no, it does not. There's a systematic attack going on in this country, and we're being, the way I term it is, we're imploding, not exploding, we're imploding. We're being destroyed from the inside out. We're being squeezed by leadership that's on the inside within this country. And so when people are being permitted in the name of free speech to go and say whatever they want to say without any repercussions, if you're conservative, if you showed up at January 6th and started praying, you get jail time, you get prison time, you get arrested. But if you are pro-Palestinian, you pro-Hamas, everything's fine. It's okay. You're pro-Israeli, they're going to attack you. You're pro-America, they're going to attack you. Those people should ask these questions of themselves: is what am I really seeing? What is actually playing out? Because right now we're still seeing effects. My question is the cause. Where does this all begin? And what's the end game? Is it an end game from 12 months from now? Is it an end game from 2 years from now? Or 2030? What is it?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to me, it is fascinating that, and I'm just doing this from the political standpoint, I liken the Palestinian wing of the Democrat Party, and that's the only way I know how to describe it, is like Frankenstein's monster.
That's a good.
No. And here's what I'm getting at. For years, whether by absentee festering, by that I mean they've let this creep in, or by the active stoking of the fire, the Democrat Party has created a wing, or let me restate it, now has on their hands a wing of their party they can't control.
Right.
And up until now, it wasn't so much of a problem. But when Joe Biden starts coming out and doing what, frankly, I think is appropriate in this matter, in that, hey, Israelis were attacked, we're going to stand with Israel. Now that wing of the party that up to that point had not given them any trouble, every time they turn around, there's a protest somewhere. That big fundraiser they held up in Manhattan, where they, where Clinton comes in,
Obama
comes in, they raise like the big amount of money. What you did not see in large part in the mainstream media were the protests outside Radio City Music Hall disrupting everything. You had people inside Radio City Music Hall who were disrupting the whole thing. I mean, I've seen Democrat politicians of very venerable, Hillary and Bill, they're out at a Broadway show and they're saying, "You got blood on your hands from genocide." I'm like, I mean, this is nuts what's going on. And, you know, how this gets settled politically inside that party, I have no idea. But this is going to tear them apart. This is absolutely has the potential to tear them apart. And how they handle this going forward, I have no idea.
Brian, I don't think they're going to be able to rein this in. I think you're going to have someone who has the courage, the confidence, the guts, and the strategy to be able to deal with these people, because for them, this is in my view, not Westerners, Easterners have a completely different mindset than us over here in the Western world. And they are much more serious about their values and their beliefs. I mean, when you hear part of their criminal justice system is if you have a certain sexual persuasion, they find out about it, they will throw you off of buildings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. Without hesitation, they will do it.
Right. And they won't be prosecuted for it. Why? It's because it's a part of their laws. If you steal something, they will cut your hand off. I mean, they really believe in the literal practice of their convictions. You ain't got to agree with it. I don't holistically agree with it either, but I admire it and respect it, because once again, in America, you say you believe in God. Well, what does that mean? I'm trying not to sin today. You know what I mean? So what's going on in this wing, what I think is happening is if you want to fundamentally, what's one of the things that the Romans would do once they've conquered a society, a village?
They would settle old Roman soldiers into those areas to Romanize the culture. Same thing with the Greeks. The Hellenization of the Mediterranean area after the era of Alexander the Great. The Romans just took that practice one step further. They put old pensioners into cities like Thessalonica, Colossae, Ephesus, and others, and that's how they subdued the conquered populace, because the conquered populace more or less became Roman by culture. Right. And that's how they did it.
And that's what's happening here. Matter of fact, and I know you probably want to shift. If I may add this, I recently heard, I think I heard about it maybe a couple of years ago, but it recently resurfaced. When this particular person got up and started chanting "Death to America" recently, it was in Michigan. Yeah, Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah.
I forget the exact city. I think, is it Dalton? I can get that from Michigan. Anyway, it's in Michigan, and it's the most Muslim community.
Dearborn.
It's Dearborn.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. Dearborn, Michigan. It's the most Muslim. Now, let me say this for the record. I am not a hater of Muslims, okay? I love people. I don't have to agree with your belief system, but I love people.
Exactly.
But it is the most Muslim community, or probably the most Muslim city in America. What happens is they follow the exact same blueprint that Brian just laid out about what the Romans did. And I understand it from that standpoint. That's what I see is unfolding as I hear more and more of this rhetoric happening on our political stage.
Yeah, which is why the Biden administration is so desperate to get this thing off the front page of the newspapers. I mean, using an old analogy, but you know what I'm talking about. They don't want this on your social media feed. They don't want this on the front page of the newspaper. They don't want this on the front page of your internet website that you go to. They've got to get this thing calmed down before the November election, because I mean, the Democrat primaries, and I've been following this now for some months, Michigan, Minnesota, Colorado, there is a very large, it's referred to as the uncommitted vote. They're not voting for Biden. They're not voting for anybody else. In Minnesota, it was as high as like between uncommitted and people voting for other candidates, it was as high as 20% of the Democrat vote in the Minnesota primary. Wow. And that's why I'm standing on my prediction that Minnesota's going to Trump in November. I could be dead wrong about this, but I don't know. It's just too weird. And it's just, to me, it's just absolutely, I mean, it saddens me
Mm-hmm.
It saddens me because I'm like you. Look, regardless, Hamas, the Palestinians, the Israelis, I want peace.
Right.
But it saddens me, but fascinates me all at the same time watching this happen culturally and politically.
Right.
So,
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry, I mean to cut you off.
that's fine. Go ahead.
No, I mean, I was going to say on that is that it fascinates me too. I'm like, on one end, I'm torn because one end, I'm like, I'm scared for the country.
Yeah.
And on the other end, I'm excited because people are actually getting to see this for themselves. Because there was a time when people like you, like me, and some others, the other gentlemen, other platforms that you creators that you mentioned earlier, have been considered conspiracy theorists. And I put it on my Twitter, and sometimes in a video or two, I would mention, I'm glad to see I'm horrified by it, but I'm at the same time glad to see that the truth is in the mainstream, because there are many people who would not do any research. They wouldn't look at anything. They want to listen to any opposing views. They would talk down to their family members or loved ones or whoever. I've had other people ask me. I had a friend of mine ask me, tell me over a year ago. I exposed a lot of these things to her. And she told me, she said, Darius, 3 years ago, so it was last year, 2023. So she said, in 2020, Darius, I would not have believed you. And respectfully, I was honest with her, but I was respectful. I said, I know. Not because I'm Mr. Know-it-all or I'm this good guy. No, it's because people don't listen until they have to. When you're in a situation that requires your attention, or it's going to force your hand for you to pay attention, that's typically when people at the least would turn around and say, okay, something's not, like you mentioned earlier, Brian, something's not right.
Well, I mean, and I hate to bring this up, but I think for a significant portion of people, the George Floyd riots in 2020 may have been the start. I don't even want to say red pill, black pill, white pill. No, let's just talk about the eye opening. Okay. Lay aside the circumstances of how George Floyd died. All right, just put all that aside. Lay aside Chauvin, lay aside Floyd, lay aside all of it.
Mm-hmm.
When businesses and homes are being burned to the ground, when African Americans are doing violence on other African Americans who had absolutely nothing, not a thing to do with the death of George Floyd, you cannot tell me that people who might have been lifelong, in their minds, political liberals, lifelong Democrats. My dad was a Democrat. He marched with ML King Jr. in the whatever. I mean, whatever you want to speech you want to give. You can't tell me that they looked at that and went, this was I have a dream. This is the culmination of I have a dream.
Right.
This is the culmination of, hope and change in America. This is fundamental transformation. This is what it looks like. I had nothing to do with that man's death. Why has everything that I've worked for been just destroyed? And I think, and like I say, if the African American community by some larger percentage comes to Trump in the next election, win or lose, win or lose, I think it's been coming, but we're at a turning point. We're at a tide turning point. And I don't know this ain't going back. Because I don't demographically, and disagree with me if you want to, you have a certain generation of the African American community that, bless their hearts, they are not going to be with us much longer. You have a generation coming up, 2 generations coming up behind them. They don't remember the days of Bull Connors. They don't remember the days of George Wallace. They don't remember all of that. They've lived in a different time and a different era. There are issues and cultural issues that are affecting them right now, and they're not willing to give the Democrat Party carte blanche and say, well, we remember what you did for us, in at the Voting Rights Act. We remember what you did for us on the Civil Rights Act. What are you doing for us now? How is our community being bettered? And I think that the great divorce, if I may use that term, the great divorce of the African American community and the Democrat Party is at this point unstoppable. Man. I just don't see it going back. I could be wrong. I could be dead wrong about this, But I just think demographics and time are going to cause that chasm to widen.
Well, there's nothing you said so far that I disagree with, Brian. You were absolutely spot on. Matter of fact, you should coin that the Great Divorce. Because, and I know, I think it was Gypsy who was asking me about me and my family. Once again, I don't have issues with my family. I've had issues with some relatives whom I love. And I had a discussion back in 2016 when we was getting ready to vote for, Trump, between
Sure.
Trump and Hillary. And I just simply said, listen, don't take my word for it. I said, do a little research on Hillary before you go and make your decision. Do something on Trump, but don't just listen to the talking heads on TV. Let them do their job. You do your job.
Yep.
And I already knew some things about Hillary. Even our own husband, Bill, put in his book about her with witchcraft and some other stuff. I said, okay, I'll tell you what, cuz why don't you do what you're gonna do, and I'm gonna do what I do. Let's leave it at that. In the Black community, when you're brought up thinking that the conservatives or Republicans are the demons and they want nothing but the worst for you, and it's being pushed out on television, I mean this sincerely, is that people have been conditioned by those in power who controls the flow of information how to think. When I first got into politics, after maybe a few years, I came up with a phrase again for myself. I said, those who control the flow of information can control the minds of the people. And so when you want one particular demographic to, once you find out what their hot buttons are, once you know how to reach them where they are, you can control the information they see and hear, to the point that people will not look up anything for themselves and they won't ask the right questions. And some of those who do, when they get ostracized, when they face some type of opposition or abuse, what do? They shrink. I'm not one of those. I don't care what you say. I'm not going to back off. I may not talk to you anymore about it, but I'm not going to back off from my convictions.
Sure.
And so with what has happened to Trump over the past few years, had Trump just told people this back in then, people, when Trump was talking about the swamp, how many people believed him? Now I did, because you probably did, or some others, because we already done some homework. But the masses who believe now didn't. And so when people started seeing the dominoes fall, and they started seeing certain things was not adding up, then that's when some of the people started saying, okay, this is not right. I know what you're saying. I know what you said. But what I'm seeing and experiencing are two different things. And that's why I think a lot of people, especially in the Black community, mostly among Black men right now, hopefully some of the Black women too. And again, I'm personally tired of, again, I know as far as conversation and stuff, I know that's what they talk about on TV, but I wish we could just all be Americans voting for us, voting for a candidate.
Boom. Absolutely. I mean, I don't, that to me, and jump in on this one if you want to, but I'm going to throw this out here. This is one of the frustrations that I have with modern political discourse. I'm told all the time by people who don't agree with me politically or ideologically, well, you need to compromise. All right. Okay. Let's talk about that for a minute. Define compromise. Because where I come from, I understand that to mean the following. Okay, we agree in principle. We just need to figure out how we want to do it. In other words, you want 10, I want 5. Fine, we agree that this is going to happen. What's the price tag? The compromise is 7.5.
Right.
Okay. You don't, and not to you, I'm to the person who's asked me this question, who said, I need to compromise. You don't want me to compromise. You want me to capitulate.
Exactly.
And there's a profound difference of those two things. You want me to basically take my principles and do the following. Bird for 3. Yeah, I'm old, folks. I'm
work it, man. Work it.
Old, man. Although I think my Celtics are going to win the world title this year. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think they're going to get sunk by the Lakers. We'll see, Brian.
LeBron is so old, he'll sink by himself, let alone the Lakers. Who knows? But anyway, they don't want me to compromise. They want me to capitulate.
100%.
Okay. They want me to chuck my principles and just give them whatever they want. I'm sorry. And that is the problem with where we are politically. If I honestly thought that the other side agreed with me about what the principles are, okay, I might be willing to find a way to compromise. I'm not even sure we even agree on the principles anymore.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure we don't.
Right.
So there's only one option left. You, generically, you have to be politically defeated once and for all. And not just politically defeated, every institution that you hold dear needs to be ripped up by the root and chucked in the trash can. Okay? The FBI, I got no problem shutting it down.
Right.
CIA, I definitely had no problem severely seeing it reduced.
We're talking.
The health state, yeah, we need to seriously rethink that after COVID. You know, there's a whole bunch of things that just need to be serious. I mean, forget this snipping around the edges, a few million here and a few million. No, just chuck billions out of them.
Done.
Just go in there with a hatchet.
Yeah.
You know, as far as the budgets for these agencies, just go in with the budgetary equivalent of a hatchet and just start chopping away.
Right.
Chop it down.
No, I agree. You're 100% right. That's exactly what people are asking for, is capitulation.
Yeah.
When you go into politics, you know, I've actually been asked this, Darius, have you considered going into politics? I said, I did a little bit. But I said, the problem is they won't like me. People like me, they try to assassinate or defame me or discredit me in whatever way they can. Because once I start learning how the process works, yada yada, I'm going to be a person of honesty and integrity. Will it be challenging? Of course, that's life. But you still have to be willing to do the right thing. And I will ask questions people don't want asked.
Yeah.
I will give some answers people don't want to hear. And that's not really popular, which is why people like Trump, for example, are being heavily attacked. It's because it's muddy out there.
Yeah.
And you really, I don't understand how people do it, but they do, and you eloquently stated it. But you really have to set your convictions aside in order to flow into. If you really want to get good in that, aside from Trump, let's take him out of it for a moment. I ain't say he's perfect or nothing, but let's take him out of it. If you really want to be successful, have a long career, you have to know how to become very good at going along to get along. And that I wouldn't flow in that system. So it's terrible out there. And I feel sorry for some of them. We do need, I would say for me, I need to do a better job of praying for my Congress and senator leaders, politicians, because I believe especially a number of them go in, even people we've not even heard of, go in with good intentions, but either they stay in once they figure out how the game is played, and they stay in and they capitulate to whatever degree, or some of them decide altogether, hey, I'm gonna step away because there's too much, the cost is too great, and they get out of it. But we do need to pray for those in leadership, and at the same time hold them accountable. Excuse me.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you what, as we start to wrap this up, let me give you an opportunity for your own free commercial here. Where can people find you on social media? What can they do to help you? What can they do to support you? And what can we do to get your message out there to people who really need to hear it?
Well, thank you. First of all, go to Darius, Real Talk with Darius. Look me up on YouTube and become a subscriber. I don't have any merchandise or anything like that yet, but I am working on those things. But I also am going to be working on some other channel opportunities. Also visit me at Twitter. My Twitter handle, _ King Darius 12. And just show your support there. Share the message, share any of the posts, share any of the videos. If you agree with the messages, also, I love engagement. So as much as I can, I will respond to the comments. Please also, like, subscribe, comment. And if you have any questions, send them my way. But also, just once you subscribe, set your notifications so that when new things come up, or when I start doing some other promotions, or when I have Brian on my show sometime, then you definitely get that notification, and we can continue this wonderful discussion.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on, and I knew this was going to be fun. I did not realize how much fun it was going to be.
Me neither.
You are welcome back here anytime you want to come on. If something's burning on the brain and you're like, man, I got to go talk about this, somebody like, hey, Brian, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't know. Hey, can I come on? Yep, you got it. If we can make the schedule work, yeah, you're welcome back. You have carte blanche invitation on the electronic front porch anytime you want to come back on.
Thank
you
you.
know, and we're going to be, as we roll into the summer, into the fall, there's going to be stuff we're doing on my channel, which, if you want a piece of it, we'd love to have you on as part of the panelists, because people who've watched my channel now long enough know, it's a pretty wide and varied, collection of, renegades, rebels, and rogues that I run around with. And man, if you want to be part of it, we'd love to have you. But thank you so much for coming on today. This has been an absolute joy. And like I say, anytime you want to come back, you've got it. So,
well, I appreciate it. I enjoyed it. Again, I'm looking forward to more collaboration and of course following up with you afterwards. And thank you, audience. I appreciate the questions. Gypsy, especially, she's sent out a lot. So Gypsy, go become a subscriber.
oh, she will, and everybody will. Now, just for a quick commercial for my part, tomorrow morning I'm back with Front Porch Brunch. Normally we do that on Saturdays, but I got a couple of great nephews playing baseball, so it kind of messed up the schedule this morning. But 10:30 a.m. Eastern, where we're going to be on YouTube, Rumble, and Twitter talking about items in the news. And boy, after what the Congress did today, oh my God. Yeah, we're going to have stuff to talk about tomorrow morning for sure. We'll be back next week with regular Chatting on the Porch, the solo show. And also next Thursday, just to give everybody a heads up, if you have the ability, we are going to be live stream covering the oral arguments of United States versus Trump, the presidential immunity case.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, we're going to, but I got to reach out to him. Daniel Street is a lawyer out of Louisiana. He's going to be joining us. Along with some more of my renegades, rebels, and rogues. And we'll be listening in to the oral arguments, which is going to be one of the most fascinating cases. I mean, these days, every case in front of the Supreme Court is fascinating, but this one touches on the question of, okay, just what kind of power does a president have, and what is he immune from in terms of duties of office? This is going to be absolutely fascinating. Wow. So I'll have something out about that sometime in the next few days about when it's going to be. I don't know what time the oral arguments start, but we will be doing that. So yeah, if you have the ability, plan on joining us for that. And well, congratulations, sir. You just picked up a new subscriber. So there you go.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So Darius, hang on a second. We'll say some proper goodbyes backstage. Folks, be back here 10:30 tomorrow morning. We'll be back with more videos, more live streams. Thank you guys ever so much. We love you guys. Thank you. Have a great rest of your Saturday. Goodbye.